So this past weekend was a long weekend because of July the 4th, and I did absolutely nothing. Or I did a little bit of everything, but I didn't do much. And I kind of had some thoughts about it, and I kind of felt a little bit demotivated over the break for several reasons, and kind of want to reflect on that in this episode. So I had Thursday, Friday off. Of course, Saturday, Sunday, so 4-day weekend. And honestly, my plan was literally just to work for the weekend. So because I had a plan of work, I didn't make any other plans. I didn't make plans to travel. I just wanted to get ahead in work and continuously grind at the project in which I'm leading the engineering side. But I quickly found out that my plan of grinding the project couldn't really be enacted because I was blocked by other people. And I think if you're in software, this is pretty common. This is not a weird thing to happen, to be blocked by some people. But for me, I was basically just waiting for people to approve my code. And before that happened, I can't really work on anything. I'm kind of stuck. I can make progress on other things, but if comments come up on my previous code, which often does because my reviewers are pretty picky, then I kind of have to rewrite everything I've already written for a second time in this new improved format, which basically just means I'm wasting many hours writing something that's going to be erased. So that basically meant that I can't really make any progress. And for me, this was just so frustrating. It's like I planned this weekend to work, which, as a side note, not many people do. But I plan to work for this weekend and I'm not able to, which is something that's very strange. And because of this, I became very stressed. And when I think about stress, I think that stress, at least for me, often comes from being unable to do something that I want to do. And a lot of it is for reasons that, of course, you can control. I think that's where a good stress comes in, where that pushes you to actually enact action. So an example is let's say there is a test coming up and you don't study for the test, and you're waiting for the last moment. Of course, there's a lot of built-up stress for that because you should be studying for this test that's coming up. But in this situation, it's kind of odd because I can't really control this review process. I can't really control when people will review my code. Maybe they're actually just on vacation, or they took time off, or they're just not working on the weekends. I don't know. But I can't control that. And despite of this, I still felt really stressed about it because I was thinking how much I actually want to work, and now I actually can't do what I want to do. And because of this stress on the weekend, I literally just didn't do anything. I did a little reading. I did a little private writing to write out my frustrations. I watched some TV. I watched some Squid Game. I worked a little bit, the few I can't work. And I kind of just sat around doing nothing. And to be completely honest, is I didn't really know what to do with myself. I went to the gym, I kind of did what I needed to do, and then I just kind of sat there because I just didn't know what else to do. A lot of my friends were outside the city, so it's not like I could hang out with them. I didn't have travel plans, so I was just kind of stuck. And it made me feel really sad, at least in that time. And I think the sadness comes from having a lack of options or things to do and not able to do anything about it, or at least feeling that I had nothing to do, feeling that I had inability to change the situation. Now, obviously, that's just a feeling, and I actually did have an ability to change that situation, which I couldn't see at the moment, but now when I reflect back, I can actually see it, and that's why I'm recording this episode, to remind future self that there's always things that I could do to make progress if I want to actually make progress, or I should just actually chill off and enjoy doing nothing and enjoy the idea of just wasting time. So now thinking back, it kind of revealed a couple of things I need to get better at. The first thing is, and this is kind of funny, I need to get better at relaxing. I think my life, a lot of it has been so type A dominant, of me chasing goal A, goal B, goal C, maybe in sequence or in parallel, but it's me always doing things actively, so that when it's finally time to actually just take a break for once, I feel like I shouldn't be taking a break. It feels like something's wrong in the matrix, if you will. Something's just off, and I can't really put a finger on it. So if you make me just sit on a couch and do nothing, it feels like I'll be going crazy. Like I'm not actively making progress in something. And something I've started to see myself doing is framing relaxation as productivity so I could be more productive later. So I become so productivity coded that now I just see relaxing as another form of productivity, which of course is not a good thing, or at least I don't believe it's a good thing in the long term. So that just shows a light of I need to get better at relaxing, like actively spending time and planning the time out ideally, such that I know for this moment I'm not doing anything. And in hopes of that, it's reducing the amount of pent up stress I could have. So it kind of brings things under my control a little bit more. Even though a lot of things are out of my control, I at least have control over my own time. And it's really reducing that stress. Another thing I felt over the course of the weekend was the feeling of FOMO. Of course, this is a feeling that's a pretty big no-brainer, given that I was planning to work, but I didn't even get to work. And then in response, if I scroll social media, I'm just seeing all my friends traveling or having whatever parties and doing whatever they do. So there was this really heavy feeling of FOMO. I felt like I was missing out on a really good weekend or a really good opportunity to do something. And this FOMO felt especially bad. And not because I traded things away, because that was an active decision I made. But it's like I traded these things away. Like I traded a weekend I could have traveled away for like the pure purpose of working. But then I couldn't even get what I was trading for. Like it couldn't even work because I was blocked by other people and by like extenuating circumstances I have no control over. So not only is there stress now from like, oh, I can't do what I want to do, but now there's also FOMO, and emphasize FOMO of I can't do what other people are doing or what I traded away for. It's like the downside that I took didn't even make me realize any upside at all. And that felt terrible. Like if anything, I think that just magnifies the amount of sadness there is around seeing other people. It's kind of like the SpongeBob meme of like you have Squidward in the house and he's watching SpongeBob and Patrick run down with their arms in the air. But it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that feeling, but magnetized, so much darker in the Squidward home, if you will. But that's what it felt like. Now, obviously, diving a little bit deeper into FOMO, I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about ways to get rid of FOMO, and I feel like there are 3 things to watch out for, at least for me. And the first one I kind of mentioned already, but the whole consensus of, or the whole basis of FOMO is that there's some sort of trade-off at play. And in order to get some things, other things must be traded away. In order for me to have better work outcomes or make more progress in the things that I want to make progress in, like working out or work or reading or writing, whatever it is, I can't spend this weekend traveling or having fun like I guess normal people would on July 4th. Now that's a trade-off I'm making, but it's one I actively want to make because I'm excited for the upside I could get, and the downsides don't feel as bad in face of the upside. Now, of course, to minimize FOMO is to ensure that I realize as much upside as possible, which that in itself was taken away from me over the weekend since I didn't have an ability to realize the upside that I wanted to realize. The second thing to watch out for FOMO is cutting it off at the root. So I feel like FOMO occurs a lot from social media, which makes sense because social media is just a highlight reel of people's lives. People are only putting on social media what they want others to see. And usually, of course, people are just putting the highlights of their lives, as they probably should, right? Like, I'm sure people don't want to put on social media the parts in where they're just falling flat on their face or a boring Tuesday or anything like that. Like, that doesn't give any engagement, that doesn't really, usually that's not something that people want to avidly remember or be identified from their profile. So the social media ends up just being a roll of highlights. And during a weekend like July 4th, there are definitely a lot of highlights. And an analogy could be drawn to someone who's trying to like not snack and is cutting it at the core. So a way to avoid FOMO in this sense is just not going on social media. Just like someone avoids snacking, the best way is just to stop buying snacks to make sure you don't have snacks in the house. The best way to avoid FOMO through social media is just don't go on social media. And I think that's something I need to get a lot better at. When I do pick up my phone, I do have a natural tendency to just immediately go to IG for some reason. I don't even use IG that often. I don't post on there. I only post stories when I write. But that's about it. So I literally have no reason to go on Instagram, but for some reason I still go there. It's like an automatic wiring of my muscles or something like that I automatically just want to pick up my phone and scroll. And that's something I definitely want to break. And I definitely need to break. On top of that, of course, is also like phone addiction of like, you can't scroll IG if you don't even have your phone beside you when you're in the washroom or when you're cooking or when you're doing whatever, like when you're on the subway, whatever it is. That's an even better method to cut it at even further down in the route. But that's the social media aspect of it. And the third part of FOMO is I find that I tend to try to convince myself that the decision I made is a good decision. That the FOMO I may be feeling is something that I shouldn't be feeling. And how I find myself often do this is I like to interweave a story about myself. And I did this many months ago and I do it a little bit less now. But I tend to weave a story about myself and how I am so much better than other people because I'm working where there is not. I'm currently reading a book called The Status Game by Will Storr, and it talks about the status of people and how people want to seek status in these different games they play. And in the context of status games, it's like I try to see myself in a greater status compared to other people because at least in the game of work, I'm doing more or I'm having more status in the metric of hours put into work compared to other people because they are playing while I am working. So I feel like that's a story that my weaker self tends to try to tell myself, to convince myself that I'm not doing something wrong and to convince myself that I'm doing a good thing. And I think that's not healthy in the long run for me. It's still like a play of ego. Ego is like telling myself that I'm more important than I actually am, whereas telling myself a story that is just not accurate per se. It's denying the facts and believing that I'm right in some certain way. So I feel like this telling of the story to myself is an expression of ego. And it is something that I definitely should acknowledge if I'm ever feeling it and try to move away from it. Kind of like meditation. During meditation, if an intrusive thought comes up, you kind of want to just acknowledge it and try to seep back in meditation. I think a good analogy is here where I should identify these situations and then slowly draw myself away from it. So that is a bit on FOMO and kind of like my thinking of FOMO that I felt very heavily over the weekend. Now, another good response actually for the FOMO that I was also thinking of is, well, how do I systematically reduce FOMO in the long run as well? Such that, well, I'm not only banking on my upsides, but I'm actually having fun as well. Like I'm exploring what I actually do want to explore. And I think a really good benchmark is just having a goal or like a mini goal to travel every month. So every month I'm obligated to travel, whether it be like somewhere more exotic, like it could be like a year-end trip. I'm traveling to like England or France or something like that. Or it could be something smaller, like I'm just traveling to Toronto, which is a really short flight. Or I'm going to somewhere else in the States. I really want to go to Austin, maybe Florida. I'm traveling somewhere. And I feel like traveling just helps deviate from the schedule of like the routine schedule of work. And it helps me appreciate, ironically, work a little bit more when I'm traveling. And it also helps inspire a little bit more inspiration. It lets my mind wander a little bit more. And I feel like that wandering helps with burnout. So it definitely reduces burnout or increases the time span in which I will be burned out. But also helps myself be more motivated to work again, or be more excited, I think is a better word, to keep working over and over and over again once I come back from the trip. So that is another way to try to reduce FOMO is, actually just do things so you actually aren't missing out. You're exerting what you're interested in, which is traveling and exploring the curiosities. Now, another bad part, of course, that fed into me feeling a bit down during the weekend was the people. Like I mentioned, a lot of my close friends were gone over the weekend, and rightly so, because it's a long weekend, they have travel plans. And I felt a bit lonely, like over the weekend, where I was just there by myself, and I'm like, I don't really know what to do with myself. And this made me think more about friends in general, where I intrinsically know a big reason why I really want to work really hard and start my own company in the future and go down the route of entrepreneurship is that I really, really, really want to meet more people who are optimizing for the same things I'm optimizing for. I feel like in all the places I worked at, whether it be like a trading firm or even my current job where it's a little bit more, I guess, like proactive, it still feels like I can't find a lot of people who are trying to optimize for what I'm optimizing for. And I feel like that causes a lot of just loneliness, where I want to talk about a lot of things, but I could only really talk about it to a select group of people who actually are excited talking about work. Because let's be honest, who is like excited talking about work? Evidently not majority of people. I would bet like 95% of people don't want to talk about work. So it's hard to find the 5%, and it's even harder to find within the 5% the people who are optimizing for what I want to optimize for. So I feel like that is an overarching goal of what I want to do, is finding the right people that I could be friends with and maybe wink, wink, nod, nod, business partners in the long run. Now, of course, then this dives into the question of, well, if you want company, you don't really need people who are optimizing for what you're optimizing for. You just have to have friends for different purposes. But this is an active trade-off that I actually made. Because I want to put so much time into work, I just don't have time to cultivate acquaintances and just, I guess, more shallow friends that are more centered around going out or drinking and stuff like that. And that in itself just falls out of my interest. Like a good example is I met someone from a party of another friend, and he invited me to go out on like a Tuesday. And like for me, it's like, well, I don't want to go out on a Tuesday, even though this is like a really good opportunity to see him again and then meet his other friends so I can meet more people. I just don't want to go out on a Tuesday, and I really want to work. And I think I can make more progress working. So that's what I did. But that is like a good example of a trade-off that I actively made. And because that's a trade-off I actively made, I shouldn't regret it that much, which in this case, I don't. But I guess when it comes to these weekends, there is some regret I have there. Is like experiencing the true realities of the downsides, and not just masking the downsides with all the realization of the upsides that I had. So it's losing the ability to ignore the downsides, which causes me to feel this feeling of loneliness that I've had in the trade-off that I made. And that just takes me to the reason of why I choose to work a lot. I think when I look on a longer time horizon, and I think about time horizons in terms of like 5 or 10 years, what do I really want? Well, I most desperately want freedom, among many other things. Like among several other things, one thing I'm like optimizing for is definitely freedom. I want to do whatever I want, whenever I want, where I want, how I want it, and with who I want it with. Like, I want to be able to control every aspect of my life. And this points to a good example. Like, if I want to work, this weekend where no one else is working, I want to be able to do that. And I want to be able to do that to the utmost extent. And I want to be able to do that with people I respect a lot and who are optimizing for what I'm optimizing for. And I want to be able to do that in New York, or maybe I travel somewhere else and I go work remotely. Like, I just want that freedom. And that is something the more I work at my company, the more desperate I am to achieve as soon as possible. Which, of course, points me into entrepreneurship. Is I just hate being restricted by the rate limits of other people. And I know my work motor is very high, and it just aggravates me to have that motor restricted. So that will be a central goal of mine in the next year or two of getting a step closer towards that freedom. Now, taking steps towards that, I think I actually got good advice for this, and it's starting to just talk to people. Like, this is the trade-off that I made of not talking to people in the first place, of being more hermit, like not checking LinkedIn, not checking Facebook that often, whatever, replying to text messages very slowly. But I actually should reach out to more people. And the people I reach out are actually very specific. It's reaching out to people who I'm actually interested in talking to. And these are the founders of seed or Series A companies in which I would want to see myself in that position in the next 5 years. So it's trying to get myself to talk to those people and, in a sense, see what opportunities there are, but also to learn what that actually looks like. So instead of just constantly dreaming about it, it's actually talking to those people and being like, oh, so this is what it's like. And maybe if it ever comes to have an opportunity to work with them or whatever comes up there. I think that's not what I'm specifically looking for. I just really want to find people who are optimizing for what I'm optimizing for. And I think that is a good avenue. Cold messaging, probably on LinkedIn, or cold emailing, just random people. But yeah, this has been a just reflection and a little bit more of a word vomit compared to my other episodes of the past weekend. I think I'm slowly clawing back from being in a little bit of a ditch that I was in the weekend and not having my life at my full fingertips. So I plan to take this week a little bit slower and hopefully get back on track for next week. But yeah, this is episode 23 of Nobody Yet, and I'll see you next week.